Tonight, as the balloon story goes pop, the couple in the middle of it all could face felony charges. I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, change in the air for medical marijuana. The federal government will not prosecute people who use pot for medical reasons in states where it's legal. A CBS News exclusive, an H1N1 victim says the experimental drug Permavir saved his life.
I am a lucky son of a gun to be here, no question about it.
So why aren't more patients getting it? And he gets our vote for most likely to succeed. You'll see why in Steve Hartman's Assignment America.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening, everyone. By all accounts, Richard Heaney craved attention, but not the kind he's getting now from the Sheriff's Department in Larimer County, Colorado. Investigators are considering criminal charges against him and his wife for allegedly perpetrating a hoax that sent law enforcement on a wild balloon chase. Their story turned out to be as flimsy as the balloon now being held at the Sheriff's Department. It's made of plastic tarps and aluminum poles held together by duct tape and string. Investigators put a 35-pound canister in the basket representing the weight of 6-year-old Falcon to show it could never have taken off with him inside. National correspondent Dean Reynolds has the very latest.
A tempting array of reporters and cameramen outside his house today was not enough to make the usually publicity-loving Richard Heaney stop and chat before driving off. But his freshly retained attorney told the early show he's negotiating with authorities on Heaney's behalf.
So I have law enforcement telling me that they will allow them to turn themselves in upon the issuance of a warrant.
Richard and his wife Mayumi could face felony charges for allegedly deceiving law enforcement and contributing to the delinquency of a minor in connection with what is being called a grand hoax, the aerial odyssey of Heaney's makeshift flying saucer that captured the world's attention last week because of the fear that 6-year-old Falcon Heaney was a stowaway.
I'm going to sneak inside.
After emergency services were pressed into action, it turned out that Falcon was never aboard. He said he was hiding the whole time. The sheriff said he thought it could be an honest mistake, but then there was this.
We did this for the show.
Falcon's suggestion that this was a publicity stunt designed to sell a show about the family changed the authorities' approach, prompted an investigation, and what the sheriff described as an inevitable conclusion.
It has been determined that this is a hoax.
Indeed, a 25-year-old researcher who sold his story to the website Gawker.com says he and Heaney drew up a master plan earlier this year to generate a massive media frenzy using a weather balloon. The point? To get attention. Friends say Richard Heaney just wanted to be rich and famous, filming himself chasing tornadoes for a price, even riding his motorcycle into the funnel cloud, accompanied by his wife and kids.
Is that a tornado?
Yes! Come on, guys, get down!
That, plus an unusual assortment of TV shows and YouTube videos, caused renewed concern for his 3 sons. Barbara Slusser is a former colleague of Heaney's.
You know, those kids grew up in this family. This is all they've ever known. To them, this is normal.
But child welfare officials may not think it's normal, nor a safe and healthy environment for kids. Meanwhile, charges are expected to be filed next week. Katie?
Dean Reynolds. Dean, thanks very much. In other news now, a major shift in federal policy today on marijuana. The Obama administration is telling U.S. attorneys not to prosecute people who use it for medical reasons in states that have made it legal. Bill Whitaker has more.
With a harvest of $14 billion, illegal marijuana is California's largest cash crop. Under the Bush administration, almost 6 million pounds of pot were seized nationwide, and 80 medical marijuana clinics were shut down just in California. While the feds still plan to carry out raids on criminal operations like these in San Diego last month, the Obama administration now is making it easier for medical marijuana users, 300,000 in California alone, to get the drug they say they need. 13 states allow some use of doctor-prescribed marijuana. Now, if the states say it's legal, the feds say hands off.
But here in Los Angeles, officials have their hands full. By most counts, there are more than 800 medical marijuana dispensaries here, more of them than public schools.
Ever since the state legalized medical marijuana 13 years ago, LA has been struggling to regulate it. While city council fiddles, storefronts selling marijuana have sprouted up like weeds all over town. Neighbors are starting to complain.
We have more pot stores on our boulevard than we do Starbucks, Pinkberry, and McDonald's combined.
The city attorney and the DA say state law allows the use of medical marijuana, not the sale, making most, if not all, of LA's dispensaries illegal. They're threatening to shut them down.
It's beyond the medical marijuana realm because we've had the wild, wild west out here.
This is a medical cannabis cutting.
Dispensers say the industry should be taxed, not terminated.
It's not reasonable to lump everyone together and say because some people abuse the system, everyone has to pay the price.
It's not just the feds taking hands off. Today, a state judge ruled LA's latest attempt to rein in the dispensaries is illegal, so the Wild West is likely to get wilder still. Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Los Angeles.
In Washington today, a top scientist who worked for the Pentagon and other agencies was arrested on spy charges. Stuart Nozet is accused of trying to sell nuclear secrets to someone he thought was an Israeli intelligence officer. That person was really an undercover FBI agent. Overseas, the Pakistani military kept up the hunt for the Taliban today. The army's attacking on 3 separate fronts in South Waziristan and says 78 Taliban and 9 Pakistani soldiers have been killed since Saturday. 150,000 civilians had fled to a neighboring province. And today there were long lines of people registering as refugees. Now to Afghanistan, where President Hamid Karzai is expected to announce tomorrow whether he'll accept or fight a possible runoff with his top challenger. With the latest from Kabul, here's Mandy Clark.
This is the reason Afghanistan may face a runoff election. Supporters of Hamid Karzai stuffing boxes with fake ballot papers last August, a countrywide fraud that was staggering. Out of 3 million votes cast for President Karzai, around 995,000, almost a third, were thrown out by UN election monitors today. That left Karzai with around 48% of the vote. Not enough for an outright majority. He needs to avoid a runoff.
What we're really looking for, trying to identify here, was ballot box stuffing. And by and large, we found a lot of it.
The runoff between Karzai and his main rival, former Foreign Minister Abdullah Abdullah, has to be agreed to by a group run by Afghans called the Independent Electoral Commission. But their independence was put into question when we visited officials counting the vote last month. The commission assured us they set aside thousands of questionable ballots, but when we looked inside the quarantine room, we found nothing.
Empty. Yeah, nothing is here.
Until the election crisis is resolved, the White House says it will not make any decision on sending in more U.S. troops. Any runoff will face al-Qaeda and Taliban threats of violence, but that's not the only concern. The fast-approaching winter will shut down whole regions of this mountainous country, and there's still the challenge of stopping the fraud that nearly allowed the election to be stolen. Mandy Clark, CBS News, Kabul.
Now to Sudan, where U.S. sanctions have done little to stop a civil war that has caused so much suffering. Today, the Obama administration announced a new policy. Here's Chief White House correspondent Chip Reed.
300,000 people have died of violence, starvation, and disease since 2003 in the Darfur region of western Sudan, the result of a brutal military campaign by Sudan's President Omar al-Bashir. Accused of genocide, he's been charged with war crimes by the International Criminal Court. During the campaign, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton called for a hardline approach with punishing sanctions. But today, Secretary of State Clinton announced a new, softer policy of the Obama administration, offering unspecified incentives if Sudan's leaders work for peace and increasingly tough sanctions if they do not.
Sitting on the sidelines is not an option.
The Sea of Misery in Darfur has attracted a parade of high-profile advocates from Bono to Angelina Jolie to George Clooney.
A lot of bad things are happening over here right now.
It's also been a major focus of human rights groups, some of whom said today they support the new policy of engagement, while also hoping that Bashir ends up behind bars.
In the meantime, we've got to work very, very assiduously to get peace in Sudan, and that means we're going to have to reach out and talk to these guys.
Some Republicans condemned the new policy. Florida Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen said it's a perversion of justice. Incentives will only be interpreted as weakness.
President Obama issued only a written statement on his new policy today, and that worries some human rights activists who say the policy will only succeed if he gets personally and deeply involved. Katie?
Chip Reed reporting from the White House tonight. Coming up next, right here on the CBS Evening News, a potentially life-saving treatment for H1N1 that many doctors don't even know about. More doses of H1N1 flu vaccine are being shipped out this week, but what about people who already have the flu and are very sick? Some doctors say they would use a new experimental drug to treat them if only they were allowed. Wyatt Andrews has this exclusive report in tonight's Eye on Medicine.
I have some tremors.
Last month, 51-year-old John Boudreau was so sick from the H1N1 virus, he was on a ventilator and suffering organ failure. Not in 30 years of practice had his doctor ever seen a patient decline so quickly from perfect health to the doorstep of death.
He was going on a curve like this at that point.
Life in danger?
Life immediate in danger, yes.
As a last resort, Dr. Robin Dretler got FDA's permission to try a promising but still experimental drug.
I wanted to get a hold of Peramivir.
Peramivir is an antiviral drug like Tamiflu or Relenza, but unlike those drugs, it's being studied as an IV or intravenous treatment for extremely ill patients. Human clinical trials in the U.S. and Japan have called Peramivir safe and effective. Sure enough, 4 days after John Boudreau got Peramivir, he began to improve.
I am a lucky son of a gun to be here. No question about it.
I am certainly strongly believing that Peramivir made the difference.
Nationwide, the FDA tells CBS News it has approved 20 similar requests for experimental Peramivir under the law allowing the compassionate use of unapproved drugs. An unofficial CBS News count found at least 8 critically ill patients who survived and 2 who died after treatment on Peramivir. Among those survivors is 11-year-old Delilah Gonzalez, who was deathly ill with H1N1. She is an important case because of the alarmingly high number of children, 86, killed so far by the flu.
She rapidly improved. The pneumonia gradually got better every day.
But as more patients die in intensive care, doctors want the FDA to speed up the delivery of emergency antiviral medications. The process now for compassionate use takes at least 4 hours of paperwork from doctors trying to treat sick patients. The FDA has said it will consider what's called an EUA, Emergency Use Authorization for Peramivir, allowing the government to stockpile the drug and reduce the paperwork. But doctors say they need it now.
You need to have this option for the patient who is very sick.
And it's only a matter of hours to keep them alive.
Oh, it's so wonderful.
As John Boudreau left DeKalb Medical Center near Atlanta, it was clear that every nurse who had cared for him had expected the worst.
This is the best part of getting better.
Experts caution it's too early to see Peramivir as a miracle drug, but there's no doubting the drug's connection to some miraculous results.
I don't know what I did, but...
You got better from us.
Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Atlanta.
Here in New York today, family, friends, and colleagues of the late Don Hewitt came together to remember the creator of 60 Minutes and share stories about this pioneer of television news.
He drew so much from the giants that taught him. Ed Murrow and his team of gentlemen correspondents were like gods to Don. He was CBS through and through.
Don Hewitt had a lascivious love for the day-to-day and week-to-week reporting of the news. It was a genuine passion that ruled the behavior of a truly unique man.
Longtime friend Alan Alda called Hewitt an unassuming person who did extraordinary things. We couldn't agree more. Don Hewitt died this past August. He was 86. It was billed as a New Age spiritual retreat in Sedona, Arizona, inspired by Native American rituals. But now a third person has died after being overcome by extreme heat. And as Ben Tracy reports, authorities are classifying the deaths as homicides.
This sweat lodge in the Arizona desert was packed with nearly 60 people, sitting in sauna-like heat for 2 hours. It was the culmination of a so-called spiritual warrior retreat. But inside the pitch-black hut on October 8th, something went wrong.
Okay, what's the problem? 2 people not breathing, with no pulse.
21 people were taken to the hospital. 2 of them died. 40-year-old James Shore and 38-year-old Kirby Brown. Her funeral was held this weekend.
I'll never get to laugh with her again. I'll never hug her again.
On Saturday, 49-year-old Liz Newman of Minnesota also died. She had been in a coma following severe dehydration from the sweat lodge. Her family is now planning to sue James Arthur Ray, the self-help guru who led the retreat and appeared in the motivational DVD, The Secret.
There's absolutely no limit whatsoever to the wishes.
Over the weekend, Ray posted on his Facebook page that words cannot fully express how deeply I'm saddened by the news of the death of my dear friend Liz. Ray has run into trouble before. In 2007, he settled a lawsuit with Diane Konopka, who broke her hand at a seminar when he urged her to break a board with it. Then this past July, 46-year-old Colleen Conaway jumped to her death at a California mall after another Ray event. This woman left a retreat 2 years ago, concerned about the conditions.
No food, no water. You can only bring your sleeping bag and your clothes.
Investigators have now searched Ray's Southern California offices for medical records.
We have not had an interview with him yet at this point. We're looking forward to it in the near future.
The people who attended the retreat paid $9,000 for the 5-day event. In a recent conference call with some of them, James Arthur Ray told them he was grieving. Ben Tracy, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And coming up next, the teen who's destined to become a tycoon in Steve Hartman's Assignment America. And finally tonight, if you're concerned about the future of this country, the young man you're about to meet may just give you reason for optimism that a new generation is more than ready to pick up the torch. Here's Steve Hartman with tonight's Assignment America.
He got to the White House by spreading positive messages of hope and empowerment. He's the future of America. He's the promise of a new generation. He's the president of the Free Country Clothing Company, a 17-year-old entrepreneur named Khalif Rollins. Khalif met that other president today, and this is the story of Khalif's road to the White House. It all began 5 months ago in his mother's garage in Carson, California. Here's where Khalif and his brother Anthony started and still run a custom t-shirt business called Free Country. What they lack in spelling, they make up for in message.
This one, it's just Crip and Blood shaking hands.
Their shirts are all about ending gang violence and empowering those kids to be something more.
It says caution, educated African American male.
Anthony does the designs. Khalif does the sales.
Who's the boss? You are. Does he know that?
Now he does.
Obviously, they're friendly partners. Only other employee is their mother, Shakria.
Thank you, baby.
Mom keeps track of the books and her son's hours.
I have to really tell them it's time to go to bed.
When did you first sense that you wanted to be a businessman?
Since birth.
That's only a slight exaggeration. Khalif started in first grade, used his lunch money to buy candy in bulk, and then resold it to his classmates. By junior high, he'd moved on to jewelry.
I'm just a natural born salesman.
Take it from me.
You can wear it.
How much is it?
You can wear any shirt. $20 for a shirt.
All right, I'll take it.
He talked me into buying that caution shirt.
It won't be weird?
No.
He sells about 65 shirts a month, mostly to classmates and friends. All profits go back to grow the business.
So your mom works for free?
Yes.
She expects nothing in return?
Expects me to do well in life.
If that's the currency, Khalif is sure paying her well.
I'm so proud of him.
Khalif Rollins.
A few months ago, Khalif submitted his business plan in a national young entrepreneur competition. 24,000 kids entered.
In order to break even, I'll need to sell 7 shirts a month.
Judges whittled it down, first to the top 3, and then to Khalif. He won $10,000 and, of course, a trip to meet the president. Khalif says they talked mostly about his company.
We showed him a couple T-shirts. We couldn't bring them all, but he kept one of our shirts that said "Caution, Educated African-American Male."
The same shirt that in the end I decided wasn't appropriate for me. Although being the consummate businessman, Khalif was still able to make a sale.
$20?
$20.
I'll take it.
All right.
Albeit a sale at my expense.
Khalif plans to spend some of his prize money on a silkscreen machine and some on college. Of course, he's going to be majoring in business, but if that doesn't work out, I guess he could go into comedy.
Good for him. Good for Khalif and his brother/partner, Anthony.
Anthony, yeah,
they're
doing well.
Forget about him. That's a great story. So what do you have on tap for next week?
Okay, next week, the man they call the Bullet Magnet. 5 Purple Hearts in 5 years. An incredible story of survival and sacrifice.
Heroism.
Next week, yeah.
All right, Steve Hartman. Steve, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And that is the CBS Evening News for tonight. I'm Katie Couric. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.